Up next on Trigger Sports TV, a new series we call Stop the Threat. We look at an angry employee who takes out his revenge on the man who had him fired. This near-fatal incident started in his driveway, led to a car chase, and ended on a dead-end street. Stay tuned. Hello shooters, my name is James Towle and this is Stop the Threat. I'm one of those people who gets up early in the morning with a cup of coffee to read the local newspaper. Not necessarily the headlines, but the small stories, the ones that tell us really what's going on in the cities and towns around America. Home invasion, a robbery at gunpoint, an assault in a parking lot. Crimes like these happen every day to hundreds and thousands of good people all across the country. I ask myself, what can I do? What can you do to prevent becoming the next victim? With a team of professional stuntmen, we reenact some of these crimes, study them over and over with a second team of professional experts drawn from law enforcement and our shooting community. We call this series Stop the Threat, a term used by law enforcement when all attempts at passive communication have failed and deadly force is the only alternative. In the following weeks, we'll select some of these crimes from the headlines, perhaps from your neighborhood, and reenact them. We'll offer real suggestions on how you can avoid becoming the next victim. Today, we'll look at a work-related shooting. An employee is fired for drinking on the job and takes his revenge out on the man who reported him. This near-fatal incident took place in Houston, Texas. The gunman was convicted. The employee who reported him experienced a life-changing event. So that leaves us with this question. Do we need to be armed 24/7? Hear what the panel has to say when we come back, right here on Stop the Threat. Welcome back, shooters. Let me introduce you to this week's panel. Each member of the panel will have to rely upon their experiences to dissect and analyze this week's Stop the Threat. Mark Walters, a regular contributor to Trigger Sports Live and host of his own nationally recognized radio show, Armed American Radio, is back with us again. Suzanna Hupp joins us, the author of her own book, written on a shooting that took place in 1991 in which 22 people and her own mother and father were tragically and needlessly slain by a gunman because the laws at the time she could not bring her handgun into the restaurant. She went on to be elected to the Texas State Legislature and was instrumental in changing the laws in Texas for law-abiding citizens. Finally, Josh Duhon, instructor and class coordinator of the Texas Pistol and Rifle Academy, servicing civilian and police communities. Josh now has been able to fulfill his dream of helping veterans by producing a movie which points out the problems veterans have returning to civilian life. Now let me ask you this question, Josh. Does it always seem like the bad guys have the guns and the good guys don't?
It does. And doesn't it seem like it should be the other way around?
An armed society is a polite society, right, Josh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
Armed society is a polite society.
If I had it my way, everybody who got a CHL in any state, that thing would be good for every state in this great country.
Well, you know,
Gun control is OSHA for criminals. It always has been.
It is. And,
yeah,
you know, it's a shame that there aren't enough law-abiding gun owners. We are estimated with state laws who keep some of those records private, as they should, but it's estimated between 8 and 12 million Americans have law-abiding Americans, 8 to 12 million, have a concealed carry permit from their respective state, of which we now have 49 states.
And how many people are in this country?
310 million
Exactly.
Americans. So we need more lawfully armed citizens.
Yeah.
No
And I guarantee
about it.
if you ran a statistic of the number of criminals and the guns that they had versus the law-abiding citizens and the guns that they had, those two figures, just like you said, James, they'd be way out of proportion.
Because every criminal is armed. Josh.
Every criminal is
you're
armed.
becoming our statistician, aren't you? Where do you get all this stuff?
I'm trying to.
You
I
do, like,
study this stuff for a
research
living.
somewhere?
Yeah. Absolutely. Study it for a living, sure.
I love it. That's why we have you on the show. Whenever he comes on, he always has the correct answers and the stats to back it up. All right, when we come back, I'm going to show you a reenactment that involves a workplace-related incident that is, well, not easily resolved, but opens the door to the question, how safe are we? Okay, we're back, and I want to show you this reenactment. This is not going to be easily resolved. Watch.
Raiders beat the Texans again. Huh? Got me fired, man. Hey, I had nothing to do with it, man. Hey, I'm telling you, I had nothing. Hey, what are you doing, man? Hey! Hey! Knock it off! I've got a gun! Dude, I've got a gun! Got a gun! Get out of the truck! Get out of here, man! Get out of the truck! Stand and stop the property! Got me fired! I'll kill you! Get out of the truck! Get after him! Something not getting away. Try to do my job. I'm gonna put some caps upside down. Faster, baby, faster, come on. This guy's crazy. I don't know what the hell he's thinking. You ain't getting away. Never again. There you go, baby, you go, you got him. Out of my way. Dead end. You got him now. Stay here, baby. Stay here. You ain't got nowhere to go. You gotta let him trap himself. Got you now, sucker. In. You ain't getting away. You got him now.
Now, Josh, what did you see to begin with?
You know, number one, that's that gentleman's backyard. That's his neighborhood. He should know that whole area inside and out. Obviously, he didn't. Number two, you know, he drove right past a no outlet sign. Where was the awareness? Obviously, his adrenaline's pumping. He's not thinking probably as clearly as he would. But, you know, I believe that the mistake primarily that he made is he did not have an exit strategy. If he had, he could have easily driven to a more populated area, possibly a law enforcement center. You know, anything that might have deterred that individual from continuing to pursue the chase, not to mention the fact he's in a 3/4-ton pickup truck.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm going to jump in. There's a lot going on.
Driving a weapon.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here right out of the gate from the beginning of this encounter. This was obviously somebody he knew from work. When he saw him coming up, he was probably, we can safely assume that he knew this individual. When the helmet came out, the car window was being bashed, he should have immediately backed up and gotten out of Dodge. He could have, you get out of the situation.
But there was a surprise factor there. He didn't see the guy coming up. I mean, the guy just suddenly appeared at his window.
When he started bashing, he didn't have anything.
Yeah, there was some shock going on. But he was driving a weapon. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. I mean, I don't think I would have tried to jockey. It's the back of my truck. What do I want, the truck or me? I would have slammed that thing in reverse.
Yeah.
I would have hit his car, and then I would have made one good fast turn. I mean, the guy's got a gun. He's telling you, I've got a gun. I'm going to kill you. I would have smashed into his truck and headed down the street. And then, like Josh pointed out, hey, you know, turning on the wrong street that's a dead end. Okay, let's say you did turn on that. Maybe he was panicked. Okay.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's easy to sit here as we watch a TV screen and speculate on what each of us would have done. The bottom line is, you never really know how you're going to react.
One thing I noticed that he didn't do, you didn't see him as he was driving away making any phone calls.
That's
he
what
wasn't talking to law enforcement.
He had a cell phone.
Followed by a red van. The guy's got a gun. His name is so-and-so.
Yeah.
I know him from work, and none of this occurred.
But hey, let me ask you this. What's the matter with getting out of the truck?
Well, the truck offers concealment. It does not offer cover, and those are two different things. Those doors, any small caliber 9mm fire is going to punch right through that metal unless it hits some sort of metal beam.
If you don't want to get out of the truck and run, which I think is a perfectly good idea, then I'm still in a weapon. I'm not going to go around my pursuer. I am going to crash.
Go right
into. Have you ever tried to drive into a guy shooting at you?
Survival. Your objective is survival.
I guess that's me then. I'm going to be so angry that I'm not going to try to go around him. Because, am I going to go and give him more time to shoot at me? I'm coming for you, man.
You know, it's interesting because you see two different perspectives. You see people, and I'm sure you see this in your training exercises, you see people who are the passive types that are going to just try to get away. And then you see other people that when their adrenaline gets flowing, they're going to square up to somebody, either literally physically square up to them or with their vehicle. And they're the ones that get mad and will run right into them.
I would have crashed the truck, got out of there, grabbed that guy, and I would have pounced. Let me at him.
But there were two of them. Did you catch that? There were two.
I think that there were two. I don't know. I think the other one may have been a female.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. He should have had a conditioned response to a threat. That's what he should have had. And he didn't have any conditioning whatsoever.
Okay.
That was apparent, and no exit strategy, no awareness of the sign, no phone call to the police, no nothing. There wasn't anything.
He really didn't have it together.
Do anything.
This, by the way, was a real story. Took place right in Houston, Texas.
These kind of things happen all the time.
This is real. This is not just a reenactment made up from somebody's imagination.
It happens all the time.
It happened just like that. He got away.
Oh, he did get away.
You know, the bad guy was arrested. There was a trial. Okay, he moved out of Houston. The bad guy's in jail.
The whole situation could have been avoided with just a simple plan. You know, and we say it over and over, and the Boy Scouts, you know, pound it into our heads, but just have a plan.
All right. When we come back, I'll show you more. Shooters, we're going to pick this up where we left it off because this is a very big point that we are trying to make. Now, I said that there is nothing wrong with getting out of your truck and running. I think my odds of being shot
Anytime flight is an option. That's always better than engagement.
You know what?
I want to do the flight in the vehicle.
It may not be me that would do that, but I don't see anything wrong with someone else doing that.
Your survival is paramount. You have a family to get back to. If you can flee safely, flee. There is no shame in surviving an encounter like that.
Which this guy clearly did.
He was unarmed. He had no plan. There was no backup coming to help him. If he had the
This gentleman got lucky.
Yeah, he got very lucky. Yeah, you bet he did.
He got very lucky that this wasn't a better planned attack on this other guy's part. Because if it had been, he
would have already got dead. The guy would have walked up.
I think he's lucky because when he drove around him, he gave me every opportunity to put a bullet in him as he drove around me. And that's where I think it was a mistake.
But let's face it, the average person is not a particularly good shot.
I love that movie, Man on Fire, with Denzel Washington.
Right.
You know, he's doing the swimming scene with Dakota Fanning, and he tells her, he said, listen, there's no such thing as tough. There's trained or there's untrained.
Right.
It's one or the other.
Well, the key to all of this is after you have the training, you've got to understand that situations like this do happen. They do happen to you. They can happen to you, and they can happen to you in your neighborhood.
Mentally
you
prepared.
mentally prepare for this.
And people
to
give
know that this
themselves
can
that
happen.
warm coat that they wear at night that says, hey, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen
Well, it
to me.
does, and that's not. That's what
and you
people
certainly
ignore
does.
the reality of what can happen to
And
themselves. in their
how do you
life.
have a plan? I don't have a plan
The first
for
thing that I saw, too, is a truck like that, a vehicle that is built like that, I would always back that thing into the driveway so I can drive it out. Because that's a battering ram.
Well, you know, let's make an assumption. I almost hate to do this.
That almost
but I
kind of
read the back-
It's a thought process.
I would
It's a
have
thought
rather
process.
have backed into him with the pickup truck than I would have hit him.
Let's go
But the
back and
nice
make
thing,
an assumption.
the
Let's
nice
make
thing
an
was,
assumption.
is that if he had been driving out, he could have ID'd that guy. He could have seen the look on his face. He could have seen the helmet in his hand and said, you know what, I'm going to get out of here.
But we're missing a key
no,
point
that's a
here.
good point.
We're missing a key point here. If we go back to the beginning of the video, we're going to operate off of a couple of assumptions here. You got me fired, man. You got me fired. You cost me my job. Obviously, there's some type of relationship here.
These two fellows worked together in the construction business. The bad guy in this particular case was drinking on the job.
Okay.
The good guy in this particular case felt endangered by working with someone who drank. He went to his boss and said, this guy's drinking on the job. I don't want to work with him. The boss reacted quickly, fired him.
And did we have details on how
60 days go by.
60
days go by before, and he can't find a job. The bad guy can't find a job.
And probably was out drinking and got wound up.
Okay, we find out later that he's had a criminal record and that he's involved with drugs, blah, blah, blah. So he's out there, okay, so he and his girlfriend get mad and they're going to go get settled. Okay, just whatever the reason was, I don't know. But they decided they were going to take it out on him first thing in the morning. And that I probably should have told
Well,
him.
it happened, but that assumption, though, was correct. We knew that he knew the individual, and that was that there was some type of relationship.
Yeah, but come on,
when you
2
have
months?
2 months, absolutely, no question about that.
You're not going to be walking out thinking somebody's going to sneak up on you every day.
You're
Yeah,
not. But
and I
that's
think that would be
what
an
we didn't see
adequate
at the
cooling
beginning
off
of
Right,
his day.
one would think.
When he
after
saw
60
this
days?
individual, he knew, whether it was 6 days or 60 days, hey, that's the guy I got fired. That's where we back out. We don't wait around. Obviously, this guy's upset. This wasn't somebody that came out of the blue. He recognized him when he walked up, and that's
We back
where
out,
could
we
start
drive
taking
out,
that
but as
into
soon
our
as he
own hands.
identifies that he's coming towards him with, and I tell people all this, people are so drawn into faces. Faces never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Hands are what
Peripheral
hurt people.
vision. You got to look at the hands.
You got to watch your you got to watch the hands. And again, that's a conditioned thing. It's a conditioned thing to back your truck up in at night. These are all conditioned processes that we're not going to do naturally. We got to train ourselves to do them.
Yeah,
Well, fortunately,
I
he
can't
survived.
disagree
Worked
with
out
that.
well for
I
him.
can't disagree. And when we come back, I'm going to ask this question. Do we have to stay armed 24/7? Be right back. Shooters, when we left, I left you with this question, and we're going to answer it now. Do we need to stay armed 24/7? Answer that question.
Why wouldn't you?
No,
Why wouldn't
of
we?
course not. Of course not. The fact of the matter is it changes the odds. That's all.
Thank
You
you.
change the odds as much as you possibly can in your life, but you can't walk around in a paranoid state. There are times where you just can't. When you're walking through that metal detector at the airport, when you're walking through the metal
Being
detector at your
aware
darn
isn't
school,
paranoid.
you just can't.
That's a.
No, I agree.
Paranoia
I wouldn't
is
issue the term paranoia or paranoid to an individual who's aware and armed 24/7. I would say that individual is aware. He's enlightened of the current
Well, that's
economic and not only economic but country that we live in today. You know, the society that we operate in. This kind of thing that happens all the time.
So
When you
I
have
need
an
to be armed when
opportunity-
I go out and get my mail in the morning?
No. When you have an
more
No,
often
opportunity,
but you
you're
can be
off.
aware of what's
The more
going on
you change
outside
your odds.
before you go out and get your mail in the morning.
Okay. I like
You know?
that. You're right. Now, I do
Before
look
you
out
walk
the
out in
window.
your robe in the morning, if you see a car that you don't normally see parked on the street, and there's some guy sitting in it, been sitting there for the past couple hours looking at you, maybe you might want to second guess before you walk out there.
But you did answer the question. The answer is no, you don't have to be armed 24/7, but you darn well better be aware 24/7.
You better be aware, yeah.
Everything we've talked about during the entire program all goes back, again, to preparation, avoidance, and awareness techniques.
Absolutely.
If you have an opportunity to be armed lawfully where you are, why wouldn't you take that opportunity?
Yeah.
There are handguns available, from the 22 North American Arms little miniature revolvers up to hand cannons. Pick your poison and keep it with you at all times. It doesn't hurt.
So Second
to be
Amendment.
armed, but
It's
you
our
don't
right to bear
have to
arms.
walk around paranoid, as our good friend Rob Pincus has said, ordering from a Braille menu because you don't want to take your eyes off.
Well,
the
you know,
dollar.
you and I have talked to this about
And nobody
this.
wants to live life like that. And,
Right.
we as Americans should not have to live life like that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you take your gun off at night? When you walk in the house.
It goes off and it goes on a nightstand.
And it goes on a nightstand. Okay. Now, you and I have talked about this.
Right.
Okay. Do you take your gun off when you come home at night?
Sometimes I don't. Depends on what I'm doing. If I know I'm going to be going back out again, maybe not. Otherwise, I will. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is going to be difficult for a woman. You're not carrying it on a belt anyway. Probably you probably have it in your purse,
Typically
right?
in my purse.
Typically in your purse.
But-
You come home at
but-
night. Boom. Do you hide your
See,
purse?
you're assuming that I only have one gun.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
Okay.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I don't
I have
have
more than one in
just,
different places.
Susanna has a gun in
way.
every room in the house and a magazine spotted somewhere around. One gun in different magazines.
Okay. All right. I do. I
A bad
take
guy
it
would
off.
be in trouble in my house. If the dogs didn't get him, one of us would.
Well,
Yes, I do.
Dogs are good.
And for families, you know, if you have a family, a wife, kids, you know, a code word that can be screamed out by anybody in the house where everybody is automatically on the same page is a great idea. An exit strategy, a plan for the whole family where if somebody comes in the house at night, they're out of the house. Okay, if they can get out, they're out of the house. A plan that's in place, weapon systems strategically located wherever they may be, so that if you get backed into a corner and you got to fight, you can even the playing
So
field
you're telling
just
me
a
I
little
should
bit.
run away from my home?
Ma'am, if you've got an opportunity, if you've got an opportunity to get out of the house without having to engage somebody and get your kids
Well,
safe.
you know, I think we're going to have to save that
That's a
one
different
for
show.
another reenactment. Okay, listen, I want to thank all of you for being on the panel. I think it's been a
very
good
much.
discussion. Viewers, if you'd like to come into the discussion, you can contact us, give us your ideas. If you have a reenactment that you think is worthy as something that took place in your town or your city, let me know about it. We'll go to work on it. But I want to thank you very much for tuning in and leave you with the usual words. Thank you for watching Stop the Threat. Be safe, be trained, be alert.